Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
Welcome to the deep dive. So this is where we're trying to make sense of it all, right? We take this massive flood of global news, just geopolitics, science, tech breakthroughs, you name it, and we boil it down. We pull out what you, the listener, really need to know.
Yeah, and today is definitely a dense one. We're covering a huge range. I mean, from a potential U.S. government shutdown to digging up Roman graves and then jumping straight into the future with AI that can code by itself. It's a lot, but it's all interconnected in fascinating ways.
Exactly. And our mission, as always, is to cut through that noise, give you the important stuff, the balanced view, technology, diplomacy, economics, history. We want to lay out all the sides neutrally. We're not here to tell you what to think, just give you the pieces so you can think.
Okay, so where should we start? I think maybe with some of the immediate geopolitical flashpoints, things that are really testing international stability right now.
Good idea. Let's head to the Middle East first, the situation in Gaza. It just remains incredibly dire, doesn't it?
It really does. And the humanitarian crisis. It's hard to even describe. Our sources highlighted a particularly awful incident recently.
You mean at the Nasser hospital?
Yeah, a Palestinian nurse just doing her job, attending to patients, shot in the head inside the hospital.
That's horrific. And Nasser is one of the few bigger hospitals still managing to function, isn't it?
Exactly. It underscores the unbelievable danger for healthcare workers there. The World Health Organization, the WHO, they've been tracking attacks on medical facilities and staff. And incidents like this show a complete breakdown of protections for people who aren't even involved in the fighting. It's catastrophic. These people are risking everything just to provide basic care.
And it's not just isolated incidents hitting medical staff, right? The sources mention continued strikes on infrastructure.
That's right. We're seeing reports of the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, conducting strikes on places like Al-Shifa Hospital, another major facility, and also residential towers. This constant pressure on civilian life, whether it's hospitals, homes, it's raising huge international alarm bells about, potential violations of humanitarian law and fueling those calls for a ceasefire.
And all this is happening while getting aid into Gaza remains a massive challenge.
A huge challenge. You saw the reports about the humanitarian flotilla trying to break the blockade to deliver supplies.
Yeah, what happened there?
Well, they were met with force. Israeli forces used drones, stun grenades, against vessels whose only mission was delivering aid, non-military ships.
So even just trying to get food and medicine in is incredibly dangerous and politicized.
Precisely. It shows the immense hurdles, logistical, political height, that aid groups have faced constantly. They get pushed back, they have to regroup, try again, all against this ongoing blockade.
Okay, so that's the grim reality on the ground. Let's shift to the diplomatic level. There was that big announcement with President Trump and PM Netanyahu, right?
Yeah, the joint press conference. They announced they were very close to some kind of peace deal, unveiling a new 20-point plan specifically for Gaza.
And the reaction was predictable, or surprising.
Pretty divided, as you'd expect. On the Israeli side, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The plan being backed by the U.S. president, seen as a potential step towards stability, perhaps.
But from the Palestinian side, I saw Hamas reacted quickly.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And with a strong rejection, an official speaking to the BBC basically said the plan completely ignores Palestinian political interests, their history, their demands for sovereignty. They argued it's heavily skewed towards Israel and doesn't address the core issues like Jerusalem or the right of return. So from their perspective, it's sort of dead on arrival.
It just shows how deep that historical divide is. Now, there was another really significant event, the Israeli strike in Qatar. That seems unprecedented.
It really was. An Israeli military operation targeting Hamas leaders, killing 5 of them, but on Qatari soil in Doha. And critically, a Qatari serviceman was also killed in that strike.
Wow. Striking inside Qatar, a major U.S. partner. That's
Right.
huge. What was the fallout? I heard Netanyahu apologized.
He did, and very formally. It was absolutely necessary to try and contain the diplomatic damage. You have to understand Qatar's role here.
Yeah, they're a key mediator, right?
A pivotal one. They host so many sensitive talks, often the only channel open for de-escalation between Israel and Palestinian groups. But it's more than that. Qatar is also home to Al Udeid Air Base, the largest U.S. military base in the entire Middle East. So an attack on their soil, killing one of their servicemen, it risks destabilizing an absolutely core U.S. alliance in the region.
Ah, okay. So the apology wasn't just expressing regret.
Not at all. It was a strategic necessity. Netanyahu had to try and prevent this from spiraling and fracturing that crucial relationship, which impacts U.S. interests directly.
That really puts it in perspective. The apology was about protecting those fragile strategic ties. Okay, speaking of fragile relationships, let's shift continents, Europe and Russia. We're seeing some mixed messages there too, aren't we?
We really are. You've got, for example, Italy's foreign minister, Antonio Tajani, trying to calm things down, saying publicly that Russian President Vladimir Putin doesn't want World War III. That seemed like a direct response to warnings coming from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who's been flagging drone threats and escalating tensions.
And Russia's official line backs that up.
Publicly, yes. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dismissed accusations from Poland and Estonia about airspace violations, called them fabricated, basically attempts to derail any peace process. So the message from Moscow is officially, we're not looking for a wider conflict.
Okay, that's the diplomatic talk. But then there's the stuff happening on the ground, or rather in the sea.
Exactly. And that tells a very different story.
Right.
Fishermen off the Black Sea coast near Trabzon in Turkey made a really alarming find.
What was it?
The Ukrainian-made drone, specifically a Magura V5 kamikaze drone.
Kamikaze drone. And the payload.
That's the staggering part. 300 kilograms of explosives.
300 kilos. That's enormous.
It is big enough that elite Turkish underwater defense teams were immediately dispatched to investigate. This isn't just some small surveillance drone.
So what does that discovery signal?
It signals that the conflict is definitely spilling beyond the immediate front lines. It raises serious questions about the Black Sea becoming this zone of, high-stakes covert warfare and potential sabotage.
And this comes after other incidents impacting infrastructure, right? Like the pipelines.
Precisely. There was the arrest of that Ukrainian diver, Volodymyr Z, in Poland near Warsaw. He was linked directly to the earlier explosions targeting Russian gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea.
Right. So you have the drone, you have the pipeline sabotage.
Yeah.
It points to a pattern.
It really does. A kind of relentless, low-level, but high-impact campaign targeting critical energy and transport infrastructure. It has massive implications for Europe's energy supply and overall stability. It's this constant, simmering conflict beneath the surface.
A shadow war, almost. Now, shifting focus slightly, but still on Russia. We got a little insight into Putin's communication style, why he avoids social media.
Yeah, his spokesman confirmed it. It basically boils down to security concerns. He prefers traditional vetted channels for communication, not tweeting his thoughts directly.
Which makes a certain kind of sense from a security perspective, but doesn't that also create a potential blind spot, relying only on staff or family for updates on, what people are actually thinking or saying online?
That's a really interesting question, isn't it? Does that kind of isolation, while protecting him from, say, direct hacking or foreign surveillance, actually make him more vulnerable to misinformation from his own inner circle, or just being out of touch with public sentiment?
Yeah, like strategic deafness almost, if your information is always filtered.
Exactly. You might miss crucial shifts or misunderstand the global mood. It's a trade-off between traditional security and modern information flow.
Fascinating. Okay, let's cross the Atlantic now. Because the United States seems to be heading towards some serious political and economic turbulence.
Absolutely. The big flashing light right now is the potential U.S. government shutdown.
Right. The deadline is Tuesday.
And if Congress can't agree on the appropriations bills, basically the funding legislation, because Democrats and Republicans are at an impasse, then parts of the government will shut down. It would be the first time in almost 7 years.
Okay, let's break that down. What does a shutdown actually mean for people? It's not just politicians arguing, right?
Not at all. It has real-world consequences. We're talking about suspending non-essential government services. That can mean national parks closing, delays in getting passports or business permits, IRS services slowing down, and hundreds of thousands of federal workers get furloughed, meaning they're sent home without pay until the shutdown ends. That hits families hard.
And the economic impact goes beyond that, doesn't it? I heard something about jobs reports.
Yeah, the Labor Department warned that if a shutdown happens, they might actually have to withhold key economic data, like the monthly jobs report.
Wow. So the very information markets and economists use to gauge the economy's health might just disappear for a while.
Exactly. It injects this huge cloud of uncertainty right when people are trying to make financial decisions.
Okay, but here's the weird part. Prediction markets are saying there's like a 70% chance of this shutdown happening.
Yeah, the odds are high.
And yet, the stock market, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, they're actually showing gains for the month. How does that work? What are investors thinking?
It's kind of a classic market paradox.
Essentially, investors are betting that while a shutdown is disruptive and, frankly, messy, it'll be temporary. Historically, these shutdowns haven't caused deep long-term economic damage or drastically hit corporate profits. So the market seems to be pricing it in as short-term political noise that will eventually get resolved without fundamentally changing the bigger picture. It's a bet on resilience over temporary chaos.
Resilience over chaos. Interesting. Okay, let's talk about some specific economic policies being floated. There was a pretty eye-popping proposal from President Trump.
Yeah, a big one. He announced plans for a 100% tariff on movies made outside the United States.
100%. That's not just a tariff, that's practically a wall. What's the rationale?
It's framed as protecting American jobs, American filmmakers, encouraging production back in the U.S. But the potential consequences are massive.
How so?
Well, first, think about access to international films. It would immediately double the cost of importing any foreign movie. Critics say it would create this cultural bottleneck, drastically limiting what Americans get to see from global cinema.
And the other side, retaliation.
Almost certainly. Other countries would likely respond with their own punitive tariffs on American cultural exports, movies, music, software. It could seriously hurt Hollywood's profits abroad.
So these potential new tariffs, they come on top of existing economic pressures that people are already feeling, right? Our sources mention real financial strain.
Absolutely. It's not just abstract policy debates. The rising cost of living, groceries, rent, gas compounded by inflation and existing tariffs is hitting people hard. We heard some really specific examples. A teacher in Dallas, Texas, needing multiple side jobs just to make ends meet, let alone help her students. An auto repair shop owner in, I think it was Ohio, saying business is down because people are putting off necessary car repairs. They just can't afford it.
So it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's affecting everyday decisions, basic necessities.
Exactly. It's widespread financial stress, forcing people to juggle jobs, cut back. It's a tangible reality for many communities right now.
And that kind of economic anxiety inevitably spills into politics. Let's look at the New York City mayoral race. Things got interesting there.
Yeah, quite interesting. The current mayor, Eric Adams, bowed out. So now you've got Zohran Mamdani as a Democratic frontrunner facing off against Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, trying for a comeback.
Okay, a local race. But it became national news because
President Trump weighed in very directly. He predicted Mamdani would bring fake communist promises and then made a very specific threat.
Which was?
He said if Mamdani wins, he would withhold federal funding from New York City.
Hold on. We were just talking about a potential government shutdown threatening funding for everyone. Now the president is specifically threatening to use federal funds as a weapon against one city based on its election results.
That's exactly the implication. It takes a local election and turns it into this high-stakes battle over national control and federal resources. It's weaponizing the budget process against political opponents.
That's a significant development. Okay, let's shift from civilian politics to military policy, because there seem to be some major changes happening there, too.
There are. We saw reports of a pretty rare meeting down at Quantico, Virginia. President Trump and the Pentagon chief, Pete Hegseth, addressed military leaders. And they introduced this concept, this new doctrine called the war from within.
The war from within, what does that mean? It sounds domestic.
It is explicitly domestic. Trump's message was that the primary threat the U.S. faces now isn't necessarily foreign, but internal. He spoke about civil disturbances, unrest, specifically citing Democratic-run cities. And he announced plans to create a dedicated military rapid response unit designed specifically to handle these domestic situations.
So a significant expansion of the military's role into what's traditionally civilian law enforcement.
A dramatic expansion, yeah. And this ties into the rhetoric coming from the Pentagon chief, Hegseth.
What was his message?
He gave a really pointed critique of what he called woke standards in the military, pushing back hard against political correctness, diversity initiatives. He argued that promotion criteria need to change. His point was that things like race or gender quotas are diluting combat effectiveness, and promotions should be based solely on merit and warfighting readiness. He wants a return to what he sees as a core warrior spirit.
So a cultural shift being pushed from the top alongside this new domestic focus. Is there money behind this?
Oh, yes. Big money. The administration put in a request for the 2026 defense budget, $1.01 trillion.
$1 trillion? That's a huge number. Where's it going?
Well, part of it, a significant chunk, $5 billion, just went to Raytheon. That contract is for their Coyote missile system.
What does that system do?
Includes counter-drone capabilities, launchers, radar. It's very much focused on homeland security and drone defense or drone superiority.
Ah, so the spending directly supports the technology needed for that war from within doctrine, countering drones, rapid response.
Exactly. The funding priorities perfectly align with the new strategic focus on domestic threats and the tech needed to address them. It's not just talk. The budget reflects the shift.
Okay. From military tech and drones, let's pivot to, well, the other kind of tech that's changing everything, artificial intelligence.
Right, and AI is moving incredibly fast. We just saw Anthropic release their latest model, Claude Sonnet 4.5.
And the buzz around this one is its coding ability.
Yeah, they're calling it their best AI for coding. Apparently, it can generate pretty accurate, complex code, but the really eye-catching part is its autonomy.
How autonomous are we talking?
They claim it can work on a coding project for up to 30 hours straight, without needing constant human checks, bug fixes, or guidance.
30 hours? That's more than a full day of work. What does that practically mean?
It means it can potentially handle much larger, more complex programming tasks independently. Most AIs need, frequent resets or corrections. This suggests Claude can maintain context, troubleshoot its own code, and complete major parts of a project on its own.
So Anthropic, which has big backers like Amazon and Google, they're really positioning themselves against OpenAI's GPT-4 now.
Directly, especially in that lucrative market for developer tools and AI coding assistants. This is a major competitive move.
And AI isn't just staying in the back end coding, it's moving into consumer stuff too, like shopping.
Definitely. We saw PayPal's Honey shopping extension integrating with ChatGPT and other AI models that are using this term, agentic AI.
Agentic AI. Okay, what makes it different from just a chatbot answering questions?
So a chatbot is reactive, right? You ask it, it answers. Agentic AI is meant to be proactive. It acts on your behalf, almost like a personal assistant. In the Honey context, it wouldn't just suggest a product. It could monitor prices for you over time, automatically hunt for discount codes across different websites, compare deals, and maybe even make the purchase for you when the conditions you set are met.
Wow. So it goes from you doing the shopping to the AI handling the shopping for you.
Pretty much. It completely changes the dynamic of online retail. It becomes an automated service rather than a task you perform.
That's a huge shift, but these powerful AIs, they use a ton of energy, right? That's always been a concern.
It is a major concern, which makes this next development really interesting. At the TechCrunch Disrupt 2025 conference, a company called Hans showed off something they call micro AI.
Micro AI as in small.
Tiny. Their AI audio processing software is apparently just kilobytes in size. Kilobytes.
How is that even possible, and what's the advantage?
The advantage is huge. Because it's so small, it uses incredibly low energy. And crucially, it allows complex AI tasks, like sophisticated audio processing, to happen on your device, like your phone or laptop, instead of needing to connect to massive, power-hungry cloud servers.
Okay, so processing on the device means better privacy, faster responses.
Both. Your data doesn't have to be sent off somewhere else, and the processing can happen almost instantly. This got Intel very interested.
Intel, the chip maker.
Yeah. They're apparently looking at integrating Hans's tech into future AI-powered PCs. Imagine much better, low-latency audio for video calls, gaming, voice commands, all processed efficiently right on your machine. It's a big deal for edge computing.
Very cool. Okay, so AI is booming, driving innovation, but it's also having a big impact on the job market, isn't it? We're seeing a lot of layoffs.
A lot of layoffs. The numbers for 2025 are pretty stark. We're looking at over 156,000 tech jobs cut so far this year. That averages out to about 576 people laid off every single day.
Oof. Why such a huge number? Is it just the economy, or is AI playing a role?
It's a mix. Part of it is definitely a correction after the massive hiring boom during the pandemic, post-COVID overexpansion. But companies are also explicitly pivoting towards AI. They're streamlining, looking for efficiencies, and investing heavily in AI development, which often means reducing headcount in other areas. The video game industry, for example, has been hit really hard.
Yeah, I saw reports of studio closures there.
Over 30 studios, reportedly. Companies like Microsoft, Intel, Meta, they're all restructuring, cutting jobs, and pouring resources into AI instead. It's a major strategic shift with real human consequences.
Definitely a painful transition for many. Okay, shifting gears slightly to personal finance, we got some classic advice from Dave Ramsey.
Slight chuckle.
Yeah.
Very classic Ramsey. A caller phoned in excited because she'd made like $1.1 million investing in stocks.
And Ramsey's reaction was?
He basically told her that her strategy, which sounds like it involved high-risk, concentrated bets, was unsustainable. He warned her about volatility, urged her to diversify, pay off debt.
Yeah.
His standard message. Don't chase quick gains. Focus on solid financial footing.
Yeah, stability over speculation. Makes sense. Now, on the other end of the investment spectrum, there was an interesting venture capital story.
Really interesting, yeah. This French engineer and YouTuber, Gabriel Jarrison, he raised a $12 million fund called Lobster Capital.
Okay. What's unique about it?
Its focus is incredibly narrow. It invests only in startups that have gone through the Y Combinator Accelerator Program, YC.
Just YC companies. Why limit it so much?
His argument is that Y Combinator, being arguably the world's top startup accelerator, does the initial heavy lifting. Their selection process is so rigorous, their mentorship so strong, that graduating from YC basically signals you're in the top 2% of investment opportunities. So Lobster Capital is betting entirely on YC's ability to pick winners, essentially outsourcing the initial filtering process. It's a very specialized niche strategy.
Interesting gamble. And finally, looking at the broader economy, any predictions on inflation?
We got a notably optimistic one from Kathy Wood, the CEO of ARK Invest. She predicted that U.S. inflation will fall well below 2% for the year 2026.
Below 2%. That's below the Fed's target.
Exactly. It suggests she believes the current inflationary pressures are really going to ease off significantly, signaling a return to a more stable price environment. That's a pretty bullish outlook.
Okay, a lot to digest on the tech and finance front. Let's do a complete change of pace now and dig into the past, literally. Archaeology had some big finds recently.
Some incredible finds, yeah. Really rewriting parts of history. One of the biggest was in Vienna, Austria. Construction workers were renovating a soccer field in the Simmering district.
And they found
a Roman mass grave. About 150 soldiers.
Wow. 150 Roman soldiers under a soccer field. When does it date back to?
To the late 1st century CE. This was a time of really intense conflict between the Roman Empire and Germanic tribes along the Danube frontier.
And why is a mass grave so significant? Wasn't cremation more common for Romans?
Overwhelmingly, yes. Romans typically practiced cremation and had formal individual burial rites. Finding a large, hasty mass burial like this is highly unusual.
So it suggests something catastrophic happened.
Precisely. The archaeology points strongly towards a hurried burial right after a major devastating battle, a significant Roman defeat. And this is crucial. It provides the first real, tangible evidence supporting accounts written by ancient historians like Tacitus, who described major Roman losses in this region during that period. Until now, those were just texts. This grave makes that history brutally real.
That's amazing, bringing historical texts to life. Okay, moving south, another significant find, but this time underwater.
Yeah, off the coast of Sicily, near a town called Ispica. Archaeologists found a shipwreck, about 2,500 years old, buried under 20 feet of sand and sediment.
2,500 years old. What kind of ship was it? What did they find?
They think it dates to the 5th or 6th century BCE. And it's like a time capsule of ancient trade in the Mediterranean. They recovered ceramics, amphorae, those are the big jars, still containing traces of olive oil and wine.
So it tells us about trade routes.
Exactly. It gives concrete evidence of the trade happening between Greek settlements in Sicily and the Carthaginians from North Africa during that period. It really highlights the Mediterranean not just as water, but as this highway for goods, culture, and ideas back then.
Incredible preservation. Okay, and one more archaeological find. This one may be the most mysterious. From South Africa.
Yeah, this one is really intriguing. Rock paintings discovered in the eastern part of South Africa. They might be centuries old, maybe older, but they depict creatures that look, well, ancient, really ancient.
Ancient how? Like animals we don't see today.
Way older than that. The leading theory is that some of these paintings depict Decenodonts.
Decenodonts? What are they?
They were these herbivorous, mammal-like reptiles, synapsids, that lived during the Permian period. That's about 250 million years ago. They were long extinct by the time humans were painting on rocks.
Wait, 250 million years ago? How on earth could ancient people paint something that went extinct so long before them? Did they find fossils?
That's one of the main theories. Either these ancient people were incredibly keen observers who found fossilized remains and incorporated them into their art and mythology. Or, perhaps even more fascinatingly, they maintained some kind of incredibly long-lasting oral tradition, stories passed down over countless generations, that somehow preserved a memory or description of these creatures.
That's mind-bending. It suggests such a deep connection to their environment and history, maybe even deep time.
It really challenges our assumptions about prehistoric knowledge and how they understood the world around them. It's a blend of potential paleontology and ancient art.
Truly fascinating. Okay, from ancient life and its echoes, Let's move to current life and the threats it faces. Environmental resilience seems to be a recurring theme.
It really is. And a key area is coral reefs. There's a new study looking specifically at staghorn coral. Its scientific name is Acropora cervicornis. It's a really important reef-building species.
And what did the study find about its resilience?
It found something crucial. While this coral can actually tolerate individual stresses surprisingly well, like, say, a single pollution event or a temporary heat spike, its ability to bounce back completely collapses when it faces multiple stressors at the same time.
Okay, so it's the combination that's deadly. What kind of combined stressors are we talking about?
The study focused on the interaction between nutrient pollution, things like nitrogen and ammonium runoff from agriculture, or sewage and disease outbreaks. The nutrient pollution seems to weaken the coral's immune system.
Making it more vulnerable to disease.
Exactly. And then when you add the background stress of warming ocean temperatures and acidification from climate change, the combined effect is devastating. It's a synergistic hit they just can't recover from.
So protecting reefs isn't just about climate change. It's also about managing what runs off the land.
Precisely. Corals are so vital they protect coastlines from storms, support incredible biodiversity, underpin fisheries that feed millions. Tackling runoff and pollution is just as critical as tackling emissions if we want them to survive. Okay. From the ocean, let's go to the desert. Another story about hidden connections. This time with cacti.
Yeah, the iconic saguaro cactus, out in the Sonoran Desert in Arizona. Sources highlighted its really vital, but mostly unseen, partnership with something called mycorrhizal fungi.
Mycorrhizal fungi. What do they do for the cactus?
They form these incredibly vast, intricate networks in the soil around the cactus roots. Think of it like a biological internet extension for the plant. These fungi are much better at absorbing water and nutrients from the dry soil than the cactus roots alone.
So they help the cactus survive drought.
Critically, they significantly boost the cactus's ability to get water, especially during those long, dry periods. It's a classic symbiotic relationship. The fungus gets sugars from the cactus gets water and nutrients from the fungus.
But these fungal networks are under threat, hugely under threat, and largely unprotected. There's this group, SPU, in the Society for the Protection of Underground Networks, doing research. And they estimate that something like 90% of these vital mycorrhizal communities around the world have no formal protection. They're vulnerable to climate change, sure, but also urbanization, agriculture, mining.
Like the situation in Arizona you mentioned.
Exactly. Near the Sonoran Desert National Monument, there's a proposed expansion of a copper mine. This could directly threaten the fragile water supplies in the area and destroy the fungal networks that the saguaros and the whole ecosystem depend on. It highlights how protecting the big, visible things often means protecting the hidden connections underground.
Protect the network to protect the cactus. Makes sense. Okay, shifting scale dramatically now. Global aviation and its climate impact.
Yeah, this is a huge and growing problem. Right now, aviation accounts for about 4% of global heating, which might not sound enormous, but
it's projected to grow massively.
Exactly. As air travel continues to increase, especially in developing economies, projections suggest aviation's share of warming could hit 22% by 2050 if things don't change. 22%.
Wow. So what's being done or discussed?
The main discussion happening at the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, is about pricing emissions, making flying more expensive based on its pollution. There's research from a group called Opportunity Green suggesting that if this is done right specifically, if the revenue raised is distributed equitably, it could actually help protect tourism-dependent nations rather than damaging their economies.
That's a key point, making sure climate action doesn't disproportionately hurt vulnerable countries. But the current system, CORSIA, isn't working well.
No, it's widely seen as inadequate. CORSIA stands for the Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation. The main criticism is that its pipeline for emissions is set too high.
Meaning airlines can pollute quite a lot before they have to do anything.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
They can significantly increase emissions before they're required to buy carbon offsets. Plus, it doesn't cover all international flights, creating loopholes. So there's a big push for ICAO members to adopt much stronger rules to really drive investment in sustainable aviation fuels and genuine emissions reductions.
A complex challenge. Okay, one more from the world of biology, and this one sounds, frankly, terrifying, about black mamba venom.
Yeah, this is fascinating but definitely unsettling research. Scientists have uncovered a kind of dangerous dual effect to the venom from the black mamba Dendroaspis polylepis.
Dual effect, what does that mean?
So the initial bite causes what we expect.
Yep.
Rapid paralysis due to neurotoxins. That's the immediate danger. But the study found something else happens later,
After the paralysis.
even after antivenom is given. The venom seems to trigger a secondary phase involving painful, intense muscle spasms and contractions. This can happen hours later and cause significant secondary injury like muscle damage.
Wow. So the antivenom stops the immediate deadly effect, but there's this delayed secondary strike.
Exactly. Which means the current treatment protocols, especially in sub-Saharan Africa where these snakes live, might need updating. Doctors need to be aware of this potential second wave of symptoms.
So patients might need longer monitoring, maybe different drugs to manage the spasms?
Potentially, yes. Pain relief, muscle relaxants. It adds another layer of complexity to treating these bites, particularly in resource-limited clinics. It's a really important finding for improving patient outcomes.
Definitely important and quite sobering. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground conflict, economics, deep history, biology. Let's wrap things up with a kind of global briefing, hitting some key points in health, culture, and security.
Sounds good. On the health front first, some potentially good news regarding preventative measures. Research is exploring nasal sprays.
Nasal sprays against viruses.
Yeah, the idea is they could create a physical or chemical barrier right there in your nose, the main entry point for many viruses like the coronavirus. It wouldn't replace vaccines, but could be another layer of defense, maybe easier to use or distribute in some cases.
Interesting. We also had an important reminder about women's health.
Yes, focusing on premature menopause. Just highlighting the key signs, irregular cycles, hot flashes, mood changes, and stressing how important early diagnosis is for managing health long-term.
Okay. And then shifting to the impact of policy on health, there was that piece about USAID funding.
Right. It was an opinion piece, important to note, but it argued that the suspension of funding from USAID, the United States Agency for International Development during the Trump administration, had severe consequences. The claim was that this pause disrupted supply chains for essential medicines in some African nations, leading to shortages, stranded drugs, and ultimately preventable deaths. It highlights the real-world impact of funding decisions.
But amidst those kinds of challenges, there are also stories of incredible local resilience, right? Like the one from Haiti.
Absolutely. This was about the ongoing cholera outbreak. There are over 3,100 suspected cases this year. In a town called Grand Douave, this woman, Oriata, whose own daughter got sick, she decided to take action. She started by building a proper latrine in her own yard, then launched hygiene campaigns, rallying the community. Her individual initiative basically sparked this grassroots movement to improve sanitation across the whole area. It's a powerful example of community action tackling a public health crisis.
That's really inspiring. Okay, shifting to crime and security. Unfortunately, some tragic incidents reported.
Yes, several concerning events.
Yep.
In Michigan, there's a deadly attack and arson at a church. The gunman was identified as an ex-Marine. The motive is still under investigation.
And another incident involving a veteran in North Carolina.
Yes, at a waterfront bar.
Oh.
A shooting left 3 people dead. The person charged was also an ex-Marine, reportedly a Purple Heart recipient. In both these cases, questions about veteran mental health support were immediately raised. It feeds into that larger national conversation about the challenges veterans face after service.
A recurring and difficult issue. And on the international stage, some security developments.
2 notable ones. Iran executed a man named Bahman Chobiasel. They identified him as a major Israeli spy working for Mossad, claiming he had infiltrated government institutions. It points to that ongoing intense intelligence conflict between Iran and Israel.
And the other incident involved a diplomat.
Tragically, yes. Nkosinathi Mfethwa, who was South Africa's ambassador to France, was found dead at his hotel in Paris. The initial reports are disturbing. The investigation noted that a window in his room, which should have been secured, had been forced open. So, foul play is definitely being considered, raising diplomatic questions.
Very concerning. Okay, let's try and end on some slightly lighter notes. Culture and sports.
Right. In golf, the Ryder Cup just finished in New York. It was a close one. Europe beat the United States 15-13. Their captain, Luke Donald, is apparently so pleased he's considering staying on for a 3rd term.
Slight chuckle. And there was a Trump connection there, too.
Yeah, apparently Rory McIlroy, one of Europe's star players, got a congratulatory text message from President Trump after the win, which led to some good-natured ribbing among his teammates. A little moment of transatlantic sporting banter.
Okay. And moving to entertainment nostalgia.
A big anniversary. Thunderbirds, the classic British puppet show, turned 60.
Thunderbirds or Kago. Yeah, I remember that.
Exactly. It's remembered not just for the cool stories and vehicles, but for its groundbreaking puppetry technique, supermarionation, developed by Jerry Anderson. The special effects, the miniature work. It was incredibly sophisticated for its time and really paved the way for effects we saw later in big movies like Star Wars.
A true pioneer. And speaking of massive scale, China unveiled a new bridge.
The world's largest bridge, apparently, standing over 2,000 feet high. It's an incredible engineering feat, but it's also designed as a huge tourist draw.
How so?
It actually has features like a cafe built into it, accessible by elevator, and even offers bungee jumping from the bridge deck. So it's infrastructure, but also a major attraction.
Only China. Okay, and finally, a note from the music world.
Yeah, legendary Jamaican music producer Colin Bowlby York just released his 5th album titled 5. He's known for revitalizing classic roots reggae tracks, bringing foundational sounds to a new generation. So a nice nod to musical heritage there.
Great. What a range we've covered.
We really have.
So just to recap, we've gone from the brink of a U.S. shutdown and deep geopolitical tensions in the Middle East and Europe to the incredible speed of AI development changing jobs, unearthed Roman battlefields, the hidden life of desert fungi. It's been quite the journey.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? You see these seemingly totally separate things, like, say, a massive $55 billion deal to take a video game company private funded by international capital,
Right.
and at the same time, the struggle for survival of a tiny fungus network in Arizona because of a local mining proposal seem worlds apart, but both reflect these huge global shifts in capital flows and climate vulnerability and resource allocation.
That's a great point. And it leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, something that really sits at the intersection of technology, global money, and ethics. We mentioned that huge $55 billion deal for the gaming giant Electronic Arts, EA. That deal was backed by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, the PIF, and it drew immediate condemnation from figures like Leah Remini, citing the Saudi regime's human rights record.
So it leads us with a really complex question in today's world, where massive investment funds cross borders so easily, funding everything from entertainment to cutting-edge tech. The question for you is this. As a consumer, as maybe even a creator, how do you navigate that? How do you reconcile potential ethical concerns about the source of the money that funds the games you play, the movies you watch, the technology you use, with your desire to access those things? When capital flows globally, often ignoring national or ethical boundaries, what responsibility, if any, does the end user have?
Something to definitely think about as we all engage with this increasingly globalized digital world. That is it for this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.